All right, we've got a new set of Runeterra spoilers for today, and they're coming with a new keyword. So the predict keyword here that we see on this new landmark, Ancient Preparations, means you get to look at three random cards that are currently in your deck, and you pick one of them to put on top of your deck. So kind of a variance reducing, draw smoothing type mechanic. And a card like this seems like a neat way to staple it onto. So we've got a cheap landmark. You play on the first turn, get to predict and kind of set up your draw a little bit. And it's countdown 2, summon a clock link. So countdown's that other new keyword where at the start of each turn it goes down 1, and then when it hits 0, you get an effect. And then a clock link is simply a 2/2/4/1. The predict mechanic in general seems like a great addition to Runeterra, and notably this will have some synergy with the allegiance mechanic that we've seen previously. So the allegiance mechanic, if you don't recall, is a keyword on a card where you get a bonus if the top card of your deck matches the region of the card you're playing the allegiance keyword with. So with this new predict keyword, we could perhaps see people start to play some of those allegiance payoff cards in decks that aren't as fully stacked with a single region, because you'll be able to predict on occasion with a cheap effect like this to be able to set up your allegiance payoff more consistently. So I really like that deck building integration from that perspective. We got some other new cards here today. More cards leveraging the predict keyword here, just like 2/3/2 play predict. 2/3/2 is like, it's a pretty okay stat line, not like above rate, but pretty on rate. And again, being able to smooth your draw and your curve has some value in it. I wouldn't be too surprised if this was a format staple 2-drop in whatever Shrumia decks you have going on. And again, cheap effect to predict that could pair well with any of the other regions with their 4 mana allegiance card on turn 6. Play this, set up your allegiance, play and trigger your allegiance guaranteed. Xenotype Researchers, 3/3 for 3. When I'm summoned, grant 3 random allies in your deck +3/+3. This effect's really powerful if you can consistently get to the cards that you're powering up. This is, in a roundabout ways, this is 12 power for 3 mana, although obviously the back nine of that power is going to be a little bit of delay. The obvious difficult part is, how are you going to get to those cards that you're putting the bonus on? And the predict keyword does this really elegantly. So it's nice to see kind of a predict payoff in a way where you are going to be rewarded for predicting more often if you're playing a card like this to find those bombs that you're creating inside of your deck. Kahari the Student. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 if you've predicted this game. So this is probably fine. Like a 4/4 for 3 is pretty on rate. And we just looked at that, the 2/3 for 2 and the 1 mana Ancient Preparation. So if you're playing 3 Aspiring Chronomancer and 3 Ancient Preparations, playing this card on 3 as a 4/4 is probably pretty realistic, right? Assuming you're mulliganing looking for one of your 6 cheap predictors, you're gonna have those in a pretty consistent amount of games. Kahari the Returned, 4/4 Fearsome. So Fearsome's that keyword that says can't be blocked by things unless they have 3 or more attack. When I'm summoned, create a copy of me in your deck. When you see me in a prediction, grant allied copies of me everywhere +2/+2. This is another sweet kind of predict payoff here. So notable too that the bonus on here does not require you to predict this to the top of your deck. It just requires that you see the returned on the prediction. So, again, if you have those 6 cheap predict enablers, even if you're smoothing your curve early by picking something else, if you're just seeing this in what you're looking at, it's going to get bigger. All of its copies everywhere are going to get bigger. And the everywhere keyword is key because it means that if you play copies of the returned later and it creates another copy in your deck, the newly created copies also get that +2/+2 bonus. Depending on exactly how many predict cards we see. So far, we only see a couple of cheap ones, but there's even just 1 or 2 more predicts. It's probably not unreasonable to see, one of your three copies of the return that you're playing in your deck two or maybe even three times by turn six, seven, or eight. And on turn six, dropping an 8/8 or even a 10/10 with Fearsome is a pretty above rate thing. Not to mention these keep creating more copies of themselves in your deck, which means, if you're playing something controlling with like cheap predict cards and this is a finisher, you're going to have endless large finishers in your deck, basically, which is sweet. The Perseverium. When I'm summoned, draw one, countdown to draw one. Yeah, it looks like the Shrumia region is going to be. This looks like it's going to be like a really good supplemental region for like a mid-range or control deck. The smoothing from predict and then the eventual card advantage from something like this seems really neat. There is a small cost having a landmark sit on your bench for a couple of turns. Obviously, takes up one of your unit spots, but I like this design a lot. It's neat to see. It's neat to see that the Runeterra developers are fitting raw card advantage into other regions in different ways. So it's not just, every region has a salvage or every region has a draw two. They have a draw two, but they draw two in slightly different manners. Promising future. Grant an ally landmark. My countdown completion effect activates twice. This feels like a card where we're kind of waiting for a good payoff for it. So we have like countdown completion, draw one, countdown completion, get a clockling. We have countdown completion, restore the sun disk. Like I guess if you copy the buried sun disk, this would draw you two copies of all your ascendants, which might be okay, but I feel like at a glance for the spoilers we've seen so far, this is a card that's waiting for something else to release to really potentially be good. So this is one that I don't think we can properly evaluate yet until we see more cards from the set. I think all it would probably take is like one really good countdown payoff for you to consider wanting to play an effect like this, but so far it doesn't look like we have that at a glance yet in the cards that we've seen. At any rate, if you didn't check out my spoiler review of Jarvan from yesterday or Renekton from 2 days ago, you can find those on my YouTube channel here as well in my Legends of Runeterra playlist. And I'll be back again when we get the next card drop with some more review as we head on into the next Runeterra set release on March 3rd. Thanks for watching today, folks.